I've made a couple of videos in the past about what I see as a bit of an irritation to do with the kind of often cited use of the word consciousness and the idea of consciousness as a component of a spirituality, or as a component of a religious set of ideas, or as something to do with some kind of metaphysics. I am still irritated by that. I'm trying to understand it, because I can kind of feel it operating in myself as well. When I think about consciousness, my own or in the abstract, I can kind of feel the shadow of those other concerns weighing into the understanding, and I'm just wondering why that is the case. I think one of the reasons why it's the case is about how we conceive of these things, about how we conceive of consciousness, and how we conceive of certain aspects of religion or spirituality or metaphysics. I mean, certainly one of the ways that consciousness seems to me is that it feels a little bit, it does feel it, but I also speak about it in these terms, a little bit like a space in which things appear. And it does appear in language a lot of the time like that. We talk about things being in our consciousness, as if consciousness is this, quite large, brightly lit space in which the objects and events of the world take place. And our attention is a little light, or a little telescope or something like that moves along around this conscious space, just like our eyes move around the real world. So I think that metaphor of consciousness as a space in which things appear is absolutely prevalent on that. And I'm just reminded, actually, whilst I'm speaking, about this lovely little book by, well, the author is attributed as O. It's a book called Unworldly Wise. It's a series of dialogues between an owl and a rabbit. They're kind of little Zen stories. And one of the quotations in that, the owl is kind of this wise, enlightened figure, and the rabbit is this naive character who asks these questions, which the owl answers terribly wisely. But one of the things the owl says quite a bit is that he is the oh God, I can't remember exactly. He is the mind in which the world appears, something like that. Or you are the world in which the mind appears. You're the mind in which the world appears, I'm sorry. So there's this sense that consciousness is this space that, as I say, events and objects appear. And the reason why I think that's related to those other concerns, the religious and spiritual concerns, and I think the book I've just mentioned, Unworldly Wise, is kind of bridging between these, because I think that's also one of the ways in which we conceive of deities, or certainly some of the mystical understandings of spirituality. And I guess here I'm leaning on Plotinus and a lot of the Neoplatonists, but also non-Western traditions as well. There's a sense in which there's a sense in which big mind, or the great spirit, or the great mystery is a kind of space in which, again, the objects and the events of the world appear. It's also kind of pantheist, as opposed to panentheist, I think, understanding of the world in which there is this kind of great, all-encompassing substrate, with the world forming within that, or as an emanation within that. So I think there's because of that overlap in the conceptualization, ultimately the metaphor that we're applying to certain spiritual understandings and to certain understandings of consciousness, as revealed in language and other expression, is causing some kind of slippage, at least for me. So mind in the sense of consciousness, and mind in the sense of the mind of God, as Stephen Hawking famously mentions, tend to be conflated and spoken about as if they're the same thing. Maybe. There are cows in the mind of God today. Look, I don't know if you can see that in this camera. It's a gorgeous day here in Cheshire. There are dogs in the mind of God. And presumably God's in the mind of dogs.